Good morning, everyone. We're going to begin our program now. Welcome. I'm Sarah Cott, Senior Vice President of Programming at The Hill. Thank you to everyone joining us in the room today and online for our event, Securing the Grid, Powering the Gulf South Region. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Entergy, for their support of this discussion. Demand for electricity is growing at the fastest pace in decades, driven by growing industrial production, heating and cooling, vehicle electrification, and the rapid expansion of data centers. At the same time, extreme weather events such as heat waves and large storms are projected to increase frequency and intensity, according to the Environmental Protection Agency. Last fall, Hurricane Helen caused more than 5 million customers in the Southeast to lose power. More recently, a massive outage in Spain and Portugal left nearly 60 million people without power, with trains, traffic lights, ATMs, phone connections, and internet access failing across the Iberian Peninsula. Authorities there are still searching for answers, while the U.S. officials heed the warning signs. The need to bolster and modernize the U.S. power grid has never been greater. What is needed to achieve a resilient power grid that also balances sustainability, clean energy priorities, customer affordability, and creates jobs? The Gulf region plays a critical role in the country's energy and economic security. What progress has been made as we near the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, and what vulnerabilities still exist? Join the Hill, Congress's trusted source for news, for this special program in New Orleans, where we are gathering leaders in federal and local government, industry, and energy solutions to discuss the current energy landscape and opportunities for growth. What's needed to ensure a reliable energy future for our communities and country at large? Before we get underway, a few housekeeping notes. If you're with us here in the room, please turn your phones to silent. Of course, you may join the program on social media. You can follow us on Facebook, X, and Instagram at The Hill Events using the hashtag HillEnergy.
Please welcome to the stage today's moderator, Julia Manchester, national political reporter at The Hill. She's joined by Eric Skrmetta, commissioner at the Louisiana Public Service Commission. Welcome.
Well, good morning, everyone, and good morning, Commissioner. Thank you so much for being here today. Certainly a lot of ground to cover. As Sarah said, we know that when it comes to renewable and non-renewable energy, we're certainly entering an interesting period of time in terms of strengthening the grid, not only here in Louisiana, but across the country. So let's start with how the Louisiana Public Service Commission is strengthening it. What are the priorities there?
Well, Louisiana undertook a pathway to grid resilience about a year ago, or maybe a little bit longer through the process, and agreed to work with Entergy on a $2 billion investment in grid resilience for not only distribution mechanisms, but also for the transmission grid, recognizing that the important thing is the ability to bounce back after critical weather events. And looking at if we can keep the poles up and the transmission poles up, the wires are easier to restore than moving up with the heavy poles. So that process has been underway for a bit and is moving along with speed.
Excellent. And we know that right now we're entering hurricane season. I think there's supposed to be 13 to 19 named storms. We know that recently, unfortunately, the Gulf has taken the brunt of past hurricane seasons. So you talked about strengthening those power poles and sort of that part of it. But what's needed really to achieve a resilient power grid that also balances sustainability and clean energy priorities? We know that that's obviously a topic as well.
Right. Well, obviously, we're looking at a mixture of transmission lines. I don't want to ignore you folks over there. I got to turn it back to you. So I'm going to look around and practice my Buckley School of Public Speaking. We're looking at the durability of a transmission grid more than anything, because we're looking at transmission towers, some of which are bordering on an antique, but we also have some of the newest transmission towers, courtesy of previous hurricanes, that are highly durable. And so we want to get the best value out of these for the ratepayers. We don't want to just go and tear down transmission towers, but we want to be in a position to replace them if they go down. And I know that sounds a bit horrid if you think about it, but the reality is you don't go around just tearing up infrastructure if it's providing a value and you're getting your money's worth out of it. So we want to make sure that the companies are in a position to do this. In the first Trump administration, we were near the end of it in a position to modify the Enabling Act of the FERC to include investor-owned utilities in the same funding as they would do through FEMA that they do for co-ops, and for the purposes of transmission. And I think that's an important element for us to look at, as to make sure we get money on the ground quicker to where we can prepare and we can have that, the supply chain ready to repair and do this. Because look, we're going to get hurricanes. They have not stopped coming, and they're not going to stop coming. They're part of nature's way of balancing pressure systems in the universe, right? We're got them, and we're going to get them. And it's always about, being able to deal with them and being able to respond. So we need supplies and we need mechanisms. We're going to need to build transformer manufacturing facilities. Been in discussions with the Pentagon about the need for building one possibly in Louisiana, Oklahoma, Texas, and making our need for transformers an American-based mechanism. So we can do things to make ourselves more reliable for ourselves, but we have to do it in a sense of urgency, and we have to do it in a way that's meaningful for our consumer.
Now, I understand that Louisiana is already working on and has begun a $2 billion project, basically in grid improvements. Does that include some of the initiatives you just chatted about, or what else does it include?
Well, the Louisiana initiative is to change out some older transmission poles, also changing out a lot of the distribution poles. We're identifying transmission mechanisms of like poles and wires, and to some degree, some older transformers that are more susceptible to damage, and do that. In fact, we had a meeting with one of our local parishes where they indicated that they identified 1,000 poles that needed to be replaced. We actually looked at it, and we identified 7,000 poles that needed to be replaced, and we put that into movement to replace 7,000 poles. So we are actually replacing actual, like what people would notice as regular utility poles in their neighborhoods, as well as certain transmission poles or towers that are out in the mechanism. And
you talked about local parishes and communication there. What has the feedback been in terms of how they're looking at the grid, how the grid is impacting them? What do they want to see improved? What's working for them?
People don't want their power to go off. I know that's the easiest way to put this. When I first became a commissioner, probably before some of you were born, about 17 years ago, we would have outages that would last, 18, 20 days. Now we have outages that last maybe a day or two after storms. And, we are in a position to where we have improved the response of our utility system, our 3 investor-owned utilities, and our cooperatives. But we've done such a good job on this through our commission and working with our utilities that it is a regular demand of, why is the power going out? And so we just have to tell our folks that they have to be patient, and we will make sure that we work with our utilities to get this done. I think that a prime example of this is Louisiana's program of encouraging linemen from around the country to come to Louisiana and help us restore our mechanism. We have an open payment plan with our utilities to make sure that we encourage the folks to come here and fix our grid. There's only about 35 to 40,000 linemen or workers in the country. Louisiana has a few thousand in place, but we have to go under a mutual aid mechanism to get people to come to Louisiana. And so one of the ways we get them here and we get them working is the commission guarantees that these utilities will recover the expense of paying these people to get them here and to make sure they get paid. We do it through a storm recovery mechanism that we would hope we can get some extra help through the Stafford Act mechanization or modification. Other states do not do that. And there have been elongated periods of recovery in other states because of their failure to accomplish the same goals. And I think that it's as an example that they could learn from this mechanism and improve response and restoration mechanisms.
How long does it take to get the linemen from other states to Louisiana? I mean, are we talking in just the aftermath of a storm, in preparation? What is that process?
Well, if you've seen on weather maps, they do the cone of predictability. To their credit, utilities in Louisiana have crews already moved into Louisiana before the storms land. And they'll bring in probably, if you want to look at it as a hypothetical, they might move in 30% of what they anticipate they'll need outside the cone of predictability. And it's about housing, it's about a workforce placement. And then as it looks like they anticipate they'll need more folks, they will bring more folks in. But these guys, you've seen them on the highways if you live anywhere south of the Mason-Dixon line and even further south of the Mason-Boudreaux line. You will see trucks along the highways and you will see them moving south. And whether they're going to Florida or Georgia or Alabama, Mississippi, wherever they're going, you will see these trucks in caravans just moving. And so they respond very quickly. So within hours versus days, they're on their way here because the call goes out. And so Louisiana responds to help our neighbors and our neighbors respond to help us.
Right, and your neighbors that are obviously also impacted by hurricanes as much. I'm from Florida myself, so I understand that. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about how the commission is leading Louisiana's utilities. How are you providing the lowest electrical rates possible to consumers?
Well, we put strong demands on our utilities to achieve these goals. We hire what I see as the best economists in the country. I think we hire the best attorneys in the country. And to be perfectly frank, we don't actually knuckle under to our utilities. We work this out. We've actually gone and had numerous cases of litigation against our various utilities. We've recovered in my 17 years, over $1 billion in rate credits from our utilities. We have been fair with our utilities. And, we understand their goals. We understand what they need, but we also hold them accountable. And we've trimmed off things that we do not think that the ratepayers should be paying for. And we work on that. But what we've also looked at is, besides achieving the goal of having extremely low utility rates in Louisiana through a regulated system that follows the regulatory compact of a traditional regulatory compact of zonal investor-owned utilities. We also look at the fact that we are our system is very quick. We are not gauged on being an impediment to new industrial development. Just in the last few years, we've had over $79 billion in new industrial development move to Louisiana. And that is not just AI. AI has been a very small part of that. It's probably been about $10 to $14 billion. And we have about $200 billion of new industrial development coming to Louisiana. Steel manufacturing, chemical manufacturing, forestry products. They come here because we have low rates. They come here because we have a very, I would call it, open and notorious regulatory process that will get them up and running. And I think that, we are in a pathway to having something that will build more power plants, and we will build gas plants, and we will build nuclear plants, and we will do so with the help of new industrials that come here and help pay for these systems.
You mentioned AI being a very small part of it. I'm curious, do you expect that to change in the future as AI sort of grows its influence? And finally, just wanted to get your sense on if you see an exciting new trend or innovation that you're hopeful for in Louisiana that everyone should get on their radar.
I would like to see any industry come to Louisiana. I'm agnostic because I look at this as the opportunities for people in my state is to help people, because Louisiana is a poor state. And, I look at ways as an elected official to find ways to help people get employment and look at ways to moderate poverty in my state. And look, somebody once told me that the surest cure for poverty is a paycheck. And we want to make sure that people get opportunities to work. And I'll give you the example of Meta for their facility in Richland Parish, which is in extreme northeastern Louisiana. The average income in that parish is approximately $35,000 a year. With this introduction of the Meta facility, they're anticipating it going north of $80,000 a year. So this is going to be a dynamic shift in the economy of Richland Parish and northeastern Louisiana. So I'm all in favor of that, particularly because they are paying the lion's share of their new 2,250 megawatts of gas plant that they're going to do. And hopefully they will be building more power generation in the future and expanding what they see can be done in Louisiana. Now, do we see more coming? I hope so. I hope we have the Hyundai steel mill, which is $6 billion and 1,300 jobs in Ascension Parish. And that's part of an industrial park that we just built new transmission for, or authorized transmission for. And that's going to provide for support industries for Hyundai, but also other industries that want to take advantage of the power complex and the transmission complex in those facilities. And we are going to have facilities that will be able to take advantage of the breadth of renewables, the breadth of nuclear, the breadth of gas, and finding their way to, if they want to have net zero power, if they want to have baseload power, whatever the cocktail of megawatts that they're going to be searching for, Louisiana is going to find its way to provide that.
Commissioner, obviously we covered a ton of ground, a lot to look out for, particularly with industry coming to Louisiana. We love to end on a hopeful note, so thank you so much for joining us.
Nice to meet you. Pleasure.
Today.
Thank you.
Thank you.